We've looked at one way to solve proportions by finding that multiplier, that factor of change that we've looked at. And today we're going to look at another way to solve proportions, because not always are they going to end up being quick and easy for you to be able to determine what it is that is happening to that given ratio to result in the problem ratio. So let's look at an example here, and this is going to be one that is going to be easy, but I want you to see the method while the numbers are easy before I show it to you while it's more complicated. So let's look at this problem. We've got 21 dogs that are in 4 cages. How many are in 16 cages? So I'm going to set up that skeleton of my proportion using those 3 ratios. First, I'm going to have my labeling ratio. If you look at this problem, it's pretty clear. We've got dogs, we've got cages. So those must be the 2 things that I am comparing, dogs and cages. We have 21 dogs in 4 cages. So I'm keeping my cages on the bottom, my dog information on the top. How many are in 16 cages? So we're solving for the number of dogs in 16 cages. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use something that's called cross, multiply, and divide. So I'm going to start here, and I see that this 4 and this x are diagonal from each other. So that means that they need to be multiplied. To represent multiplication with a number and a letter, a variable and a coefficient, we write them right next to each other, 4x. And that is going to be equal to whatever we get when we multiply diagonally here, 21 times 16. Okay? So now I've got to take the time and I've got to actually multiply that work out. I've got to multiply 21 and 16 and see what I get. 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. I need my placeholder. And then, of course, 1 times 21 is 21. Let me add this together, and I end up with 4x is equal to 336. So when you look at this, you can see you're actually beginning to solve some algebra now. So now I'm going to take 4x. I need to get that x, that coefficient, alone. I need to get it all by itself. So what I'm going to do is I am going to divide both sides of my equation by 4. When we talk about algebra, we have to keep our equations balanced. That means whatever we do to the left side, we have to do to the right side. So now I've got to take this 336 and I have to divide it by 4. See, 4 can't go into 3. It goes into 33 8 times. 8 times 4 is 32. Subtract and I have 16. So then that means 4 goes into 16 4 times. Subtract and I end up with x being 84 is my answer. So that means there's 84 dogs in 16 cages. Now the way that we worked with it, we just looked for our multiplier. What happens to 4 to get 16? Well, you would multiply by 4. So then we would have to take 21 and multiply by 4, and we end up with 84. The exact same answer, just a different method to solve it. Sometimes when you're finding the multiplier, when you're using this method, it's not easy. Cross, multiply, and divide, this method works every single time. Let's look at another one. This is another one that has some easy work to it, but again, I just want to prove to you that this method works every time. There is a typo in this one, so I just crossed that out so it's not in the way. In 2000, the average television viewer watched about 29 hours of television in 7 days. About how many hours of television did the average viewer watch in 28 days? So let's set up our proportion. We're comparing hours of television to days. So we've got hours as one label and days as the other. So 29 hours in 7 days would be our given ratio. And then we have 28 days and we're solving for hours. So again, I'm going to cross multiply and divide. So that would give me that 7x is equal to 29 times 28. Whoops. Times 28. So now I've got to come and I've got to actually work out 29 times 28. I'm going to give you a second to work that out. All right, so if you multiplied correctly, you would have that 7x is equal to 812. So now we've done the multiply part of cross multiply. Now I'm going to divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by 7. And again, need that doodle work to show 812 divided by 7. And we end up with 116. So that means that the average television watcher in 28 days watched 16 hours of television. Now we could have used that method that we had done before, 7 times 4 is 28, and then we would have done 29 times 4, and we would have also ended up with 116. Let's look at another problem. So in this situation, we are going to have what I call ugly math. There's going to be some decimals. So let's look at that. If 5 bags of mulch covers 32 square feet, so we're going to have 5 bags of mulch that covers 32 square feet, how many square feet could 16 bags cover? Well, clearly we are comparing these bags of mulch to the square feet. We have 5 bags that cover 32, so we need to figure out how many feet 16 bags is going to cover. So my unknown is the square feet. And if we look here from 5 to 16, well, that's not an easy situation to work out. So cross multiply and divide is definitely something that we want to use here. So we're going to take this 5 and multiply it by x. We move in a diagonal manner. And that's going to give us the same as 32 times 16. So let's work out what 32 times 16 is. Pause here, work that out. So if you worked it out correctly, you would get 512. So 5x is equal to 512. Then we have to divide by 5. So then that gives us 512 divided by 5. It goes one time. I'm going to have to bring down this 1. Then I've got 1 divided by 5. Well, that's going to be 0. Then I have 12 divided by 5. That's going to be 2. And you can see, I'm going to move my work over here, I have 2 left over, which means I'm going to have to add a decimal and a 0 and bring that down. So then I have 20 divided by 5, which is 4. So we're going to get 102.4 square feet. It's okay to have a decimal. Sometimes it's going to happen. I will tell you that on any of your work today, none of it is non-terminating. All of your decimals will end. All right, so I'm going to pause. I want you to set up your proportion and then restart this video. Okay, so here's what your proportion should look like. The airplane boards 16 people every 3 minutes. How long would it take to board all 150 passengers? Well, the passengers are the people. So our first ratio is our labeling ratio of people in minutes. We're going to have 16 people in 3 minutes, so we need to know about 150 people. Now I want you to set up your cross multiply and divide, solve this, and then come back and check your work. So you should have ended up with 28.125 minutes. All right, on your work today, make sure you are showing all of the steps. It is a lot of work, but if you can master this method, it works every single time.